You're watching It's Life Live with your hosts, Juan Lee and Oliver Marcel. Come join us for enriching, enlightening, encouraging, and thought-provoking conversation. Let's go. What's up, everybody?
Hello, hello. Hey, Oliver, what's going on?
Man, I can't call it. Isn't that what you're supposed to say once you're over 50?
Wow. Well, what I'm supposed to say? What I'm supposed to say when you get over 60 next year for
Hey,
me? Gee, well, Christmas.
I don't know. I was watching. Who was it that was talking about that? It was Tony Rock, Chris Rock's brother, talking about just how older guys talk. And that older guys are so just all even keel, and that's one of the phrases he used. Like, I can't call.
I can relate. You know, I can relate. It's hey, you get to this side of the mountain, boy, and you got to realize that you got to make it easy. You got to take it easy.
Listen, you know what I'm saying. You got to really look at the things that are important, that are really important as it relates to navigating life, right? Not just the stuff that we prop up and spend a lot of our energy chasing, only to recognize that maybe that's not the most important thing.
Hey, sooner than later is better than never.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. Sooner than later is better than never.
Yeah. So if you haven't never, if you ain't figured it out yet, and you're sort of the kind of figuring it out today, better than ever.
Yeah. Listen, as long as you are alive, you have an opportunity to make an adjustment.
Hey man, and that's that's it. That's life. That's what this is all about. So before we get rolling on this entire conversation, we would like to first and foremost, well, hello, Renee. That is great to see you, Renee.
Shout out to Renee.
Look, then it's been a while to seeing you, so it's good to hear and see you in the space. Hey, I hope this doesn't deter you from being here. But our guest is not going to be with us tonight, but that doesn't mean that we don't have a lot to say that we can help and share with things that can help people navigate life more successfully in life. So that's the front end of it. But before we go even any further, let's just tell about who Clear Journey is and what its life is all about. Its life is presented and sponsored by Clear Journey, which is a nonprofit that supports individuals that are looking to answer questions to life's challenges. We provide resources and education so that you can navigate and reach your full potential. It all started with a book that I wrote called Love Made Simple, a guide to inner peace, contentment, and success. And that's the foundation, a love mindset that allows us to have the right attitude so that we can engage all of the various areas of life with the right attitude so that we can navigate it most successfully. So that's what we do. And if you're interested in being a part or subscribing or being a member of our community, please, by all means, if you're on YouTube, please subscribe, hit the like button, hit the bell so that you know that we're up and on, and so that you can become a member or a part of the community. Also, as you might know, if you're on any of the other social media, we're on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, along with YouTube. So by all means, be a part of the community. If you are listening to us on either of those other platforms like Facebook or Instagram or LinkedIn, go over to YouTube. Get onto it's Clear Journey Inc. is our YouTube channel. Be a part of the community. We really appreciate it. That being said, one of the key components of what we do, and we talk about three areas specifically, and that's finances, relationships, and health and wellness. And one of the areas that we promote very intentionally and heavily, and that is your finances. And what we have for you, if when you become a part of our community, if you will, please, and we're looking for you to be a part of our community, go over to clearjourney.org, and there is a book over there. It's a book about budgeting, about before you can be able to be a good steward of your money, you have to understand and realize where your money is going. And so budgeting made easy. The guide to taking charge of your money is over there for you. It's all you got to do is, you know, just put in for ask for it. We'll send it to you for free. Um, in addition to that, if you would like, we would really appreciate any type of support that you might want to help us with in donation. That would be absolutely wonderful also. So that is who we are while we're here, and we're here every Wednesday night so that we can help anyone and everybody maybe navigate this thing called life just a little bit easier and to reach your full potential.
Yeah.
Tonight, because we don't have a guest, Oliver and I are going to chop it up as it relates to relationships because that's Oliver's forte.
That is
Oliver's forte.
where I live.
So that's what we're going to do. Oliver, so how's things been going today? I mean, we're just going to pick it up and just have a great one. And however you want to run it, we're going to run it because you know
Yeah.
what? The right mindset is what it takes to be able to have a good relationship.
The right mindset is what it takes to have a good relationship. My day was, well, you know how my Wednesdays go. My Wednesdays are pretty much all the same. I'm generally, for the better part of my Wednesdays, I'm usually running errands for my parents. So my parents are not as mobile as they used to be, don't drive and that sort of thing. So I just make sure their groceries and, you know, other little things that they may need to get done, go to the bank, that kind of thing is typically how my Wednesdays go. And so once I return from there, I'm usually most times getting prepared for a relationship show that we do on YouTube, my wife and I, on Thursdays. So I'm usually kind of getting prepared for that and that kind of thing. But yeah, that's kind of how my Wednesday went, man. It was raining. It's, you know, we're here in Maryland. You know, those of you know in the Maryland area, it rained all day long.
I'll
All
take
day
the
long.
I'll take the rain over snow any day.
And I am with you 1000%. And as in true Maryland fashion, not only did it rain all day, but it was also 60 degrees. And in true Maryland fashion, it's going to be 30 tomorrow. So there you have it.
Well, and the thing about it is, in that case, you go like, okay, as long as ain't no precipitation, I'll take that
Listen,
30.
I'll take it because because I don't know if you were paying attention to what was happening up north last week, but it was
Yeah, I did.
bananas
Yeah, I
in
got
the
it.
north, up north and Midwest. Woo,
I got it.
crazy. Shout out to Alicia in the comments. Good evening to you as well, Alicia.
Yes, yes.
Comments. Thank
We
you for
we
being
we
here.
did we did we don't have our guest tonight, Alicia. So it's me and Oliver and you.
Right, that's what's up. And we're talk. So we're gonna use this time to talk about relationships. Listen, I'm gonna do something. Um, I did this on my wife and I on our relationship show last week. I'm gonna share something because when you think about what Clear Journey stands for and the mindset that you talk about quite often, a significant component of that mindset is your willingness to and ability to serve those around you, whether that's humanity and as a whole, whether that's segments of the population, or if we peel all the layers back and that's just your family members. Um, there is, you have to have a heart to serve. If you want any relationship that you are in to, if you want to navigate that relationship with some level of success, you have to position yourself to start thinking about service, right? So with that in mind, I'm going to share something. um my wife, she doesn't really get on me, but she's kind of gotten used to me now, uh sometimes oversharing. So there's times that I will share things that really you should actually be paying me for. Tonight is going to be one of those. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but there's an exercise that we take our one-on-one clients through. So typically our one-on-one clients are with us for a series of sessions so that we can really kind of dig into some things. And typically, um, halfway or a little over the halfway point, we start digging into this. And it is understanding, identifying, and understanding how to meet each other's needs.
Mm, okay.
Yeah.
Um, and look, that's probably a little bit of a part of understanding one's love language.
That is part of it. That's a part of
Hmm.
it.
Hmm.
Now, and I would say, I'm glad you brought that up, because for individuals who, because we take our clients, let me just disclaimer, we take our clients through this in a very, very in-depth way. Now, the an easy entry point to this is identifying the love language. That's an easy entry point, because once you identify that, now it's about understanding how to speak it. And I tell this story all the time as it relates to love languages. When I worked in the corporate space, I worked for a corporation, and on the campus of this corporation was 5 buildings. Is it five? One, two, three, four, five buildings. There's 6 buildings in total, but 5 that were in this cluster. And there was a guy, he was the head of, was he the facilities manager, I believe? His name was Severio, Hispanic gentleman. He and I mean, the nicest guy I've ever met. One of the nicest guys I've ever met. And he and I kind of formed this relationship. So as I would move about the buildings, I had the position that I had, or one of the positions I held during my stint in that company, allowed me to meet a lot of people on a daily basis. So he and I formed a great relationship. And after a while, to make the story short, he would insist that I speak to him in Spanish. I don't know Spanish, right? We're talking about love languages here. So I'm going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
He would insist that I would speak to him in Spanish. I don't know Spanish. So often what I would have to do is I would have to say, Severio, I'm trying to say this, this, and this. How do you say this in Spanish? I'd actually have to ask him. I
Hmm.
couldn't guess because I don't know that language.
Hmm.
So in order for me to learn that language, I'd have to ask questions. And he inadvertently had to share with me how to say said thing. Sometimes he would write it down for me. Sometimes I would write it down. And we got into this rhythm where it got to the point where one, I had all these notepads that were very similar to this on my desk at work, that were filled with phrases and conversational things and all of this stuff that I would practice. So fast forward the story even further. I'm getting better with this. We're having these little, water cooler talk conversations that I can kind of keep up with in Spanish. I end up going to the corporation's 6th building, which is somewhere different. So it took me away from the area where I would normally be for
Hmm.
about 3 or 4 months. I didn't really see him. Now, I also did not take all of my stuff I had on my desk in my original building to the new building. So I wasn't practicing either. So we're going to come to the end of this story and we're going to see how this wraps, how this makes sense. I finally get back to the building where I would normally be on a daily basis. I run into him and he just starts talking in Spanish. And I'm looking at him like a deer is looking at headlights. And I'm like, Severio, I haven't been practicing. I forgot how to say such and such. So, why did I even tell that story? It's one thing to identify your mate's love language. It's another thing to know how to speak it. And sometimes, often, always, even when you are learning to speak another language, you have to practice. You have to put yourself in a position to say those words all the time. You may have to ask how to say those words. So you may have to ask your mate, how do I love you in that way? How do I serve you in that way? How do I care for you in that way? So that you can be consistently speaking those languages, whatever it is, after you identify what it is. So that's my story that I always tell about the love language thing. Um, yeah, it's one thing to identify it. I can identify Spanish all day long, but I can't get in no conversation with nobody.
That's a very interesting way you put that, because that's exactly because you've got to now put on that ability to
Hmm.
be able to provide that need, to be able to provide that love that's necessary for that mate, for that spouse.
Hmm.
And in many cases, the things that I've learned about the love languages is that they're very indicative of the things that you lacked as you
Mm.
grew up.
Okay. Okay.
And so, if that's something that you have been familiar with and your spouse has not been familiar with, so
Hmm.
that's their love language.
Hmm.
And so, but then you begin to overlook, or even be able to conceptualize what it is that they're asking for, because it's been something that's been very easily done for you and done to you.
Hmm.
And so it's not something that you know how to necessarily demonstrate, because it's like, and it's wow, it's wow, because it's so interesting that you said that, because you've got to be what they want you to be to them.
And that's the key for, and those two words are key to them.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Because here's the thing: if we use the Spanish speaking scenario, there were certain words that Severio would teach me that were uh, exclusively aligned to his particular dialect in the Spanish language. So if I was talking to somebody who was from somewhere else, he was from what was he from? Portugal? I can't remember. I think it was Portugal. But if you're talking to someone from Spain, or if you're talking to someone from a different, those words may be a little bit different. So
Mm-hmm.
to them is key. Alicia in the comments said attachment styles and love languages are generally rooted in childhood experiences. Indeed. And the attachment style piece is a whole nother conversation.
Mm-hmm.
We could literally
Mm-hmm.
have an entire conversation on the attachment styles piece. But understanding what it is your mate needs and facilitating meeting that need, I dare say, is crucial to the successful relationship. So here's what I'm going to share. This is an exercise that we take all of our clients through. I'm literally going to give you the very high level surface of this. We're not going to dig deep, but just so that you understand what it is. There's an exercise my wife and I did years ago that was a game changer for our marriage. So to give some context, we've been married for over 24 years, 25 coming up next year. I've known her for 30, roughly. And I I got married a very selfish individual. I got married for very selfish reasons, many of them the wrong reasons. Uh, Very much what am I going to get out of this as opposed to what am I going to contribute. So you can only imagine that the first couple years of our marriage were not something that would land us in Phenomenal Marriage Magazine, if that was a thing, right? So, so fast forward several years ago, we did this assignment where we had to identify our most important emotional needs. Going through that process, and I'll give you an overview of what the process was. That literally, I just put a clip about it on social media because we talked about it last week. That was a game changer for our relationship because what it did was it opened my eyes to the things that were important to her. It also provided me with a blueprint on how I could provide those things consistently and successfully. And and that focus caused me to take focus off of myself. So here are what you're looking for as it relates to needs. There are a lot of different needs, right? You have needs that just make you comfortable. And like for example, here's a need that just makes you comfortable. A need that's a comfort thing for me is my wife fixing my plate or um, making me tea or just some of the things that just kind of happen to become everyday routine things, right? Now, although those are important to me and have become important to me, they do not make or break my relationship. They don't necessarily endear me to her or make me feel some kind of way about her. The needs that we had to identify are there are certain type of need that when that need is met, you tend to fall in love with the person who met that need. So folk if that are watching now or watching the replay, you may have heard maybe your friends say, "Oh, he does this certain thing for me," or she says this kind of thing, and you can kind of tell that they're falling for this person. They're talking about something that's attached to an emotional need of theirs, and it's being met, and they're starting to develop feelings for this person. So these were the things we had to identify. And here are the 4 questions we had to ask. So I'm not going to go too deep into this because you need to become a client to really get the whole experience. But here are the 4 things you need to really flush out once you identify what those most important emotional needs are. Why is the need important to you? You need to know that. The second thing you need to know is how does meeting that need benefit the marital team? Because remember, we're not trying to be selfish here. We're trying to create an atmosphere of cyclical servitude, right? So, how does this need, if I have a need and my spouse meets that need, how does meeting that need benefit the marital team? That's the second question. Third question is, what can my mate do to facilitate meeting that need? This is where some really specific things come into play because often in relationships we have expectations, but those expectations have never been articulated. And because those expectations have never been articulated, we set ourselves up for a breeding ground of resentment. So in that question, what can my spouse do to facilitate meeting that need? This is where we get really specific. The next question is, how can I create an atmosphere for my spouse that is conducive to and is ripe for her to consistently meet that need? Now, this was a pretty long drawn out process that my wife and I went through, and it's a long drawn out process that we take our clients through. But on the end of that, once you have flushed everything out and you've answered all the questions and you've done all of the explanation, clarification, and negotiation that's necessary to really get an understanding, on the back end of that, you make a commitment to now consistently meet what you have identified. When I say that changed the game for our relationship, I mean like night and day.
Let me ask you a question. What was it that made those questions more relevant to your relationship
Mhm.
than prior? Because, you know, you said it before. You said, you know, I was in it for what I could get.
Mhm.
What was it about those questions? What was it about? Because those questions didn't come out of nowhere.
Right.
You know, how did because there's that switch that came to the point where it's like, was there I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired?
Well, for us, it wasn't. It might have been a little bit of that, but for us, it wasn't so much that we were sick and tired as much as we didn't know what we didn't know, and we just happened to be exposed to that exercise. And the thing that made it different for us is that we were unable to, and we don't allow our clients to do this either. We were unable to go through those questions in a superficial manner.
Explain.
So let me give you an example. So, for
Mm-hmm.
example, let's take the question: what can my spouse do to meet the need that I identified? Superficially, you could just be like, well, just show up consistently. We have these phrases that we say all the time that we don't know what they mean.
Mm-hmm.
If we were asked to break them down,
Mm-hmm.
we were not allowed to skate through this. There were times where and explanation, clarification, negotiation is are three components of effective conversation that we take couples through as well. There were times where we were literally going through that process of explanation, clarification, and negotiation time and time and time and time again on one issue before we could flush this whole thing out. And that was something we had never done before.
But
It was
here's the thing, did you know where you were headed in the process of doing it though? That's what I'm saying. I mean, did
um
you have any idea as it relates to the aha moment at the end?
in the beginning, no.
Mm.
It wasn't until we were really challenged to really be specific that we started realizing, okay, there's some things that have been deep down in us that we've actually always wanted but never said. There's some things that I never knew. I just assumed and was dead wrong. And there's things that I didn't know at all that I had, and vice versa. Things she learned about me, like the Christmas thing that we
Mm-hmm.
talked about last week, right?
Mm-hmm.
That was something that she didn't learn about me until years into this thing. And after we had learned how to have that conversation, I was able to have that conversation with her from what we learned through that experience.
I'm going to ask you something that's very interesting towards that process though.
Mhm.
And what you're talking about is how much of what you learned through that process was about you and learning your own authenticity.
A lot of it, a lot of it, because prior to doing that, we also had to take an assessment. And ironically, that is the assessment we use for all our clients as well. Um, we took a couple assessments, but this one in particular, the very first part of the assessment talked about identified our personality style. And then every other segment of what we went through, whether it be conflict, finance, intimacy, whatever, it was all, they all tied it back to our personality. So there were things that we were like, okay, that's why I always do that. That's why we don't ever, that's why we kind of butt heads on this particular issue, because you see it that way. And and we had never taken the time to really to dig into to try to understand that.
Here's the thing. And in light of that, can you have even imagined where you would have been if you had never accidentally
Bro,
grown up and gone through that? Um,
I don't want to think about it. I hope that somehow God would have led us to where we are now, but I don't know. I can't. That was such a game changer for us that I don't even know what it would be like without it.
well, I mean, because that's the kind of transformation I think that you talking about here, that we are looking to for people to have in their lives, you know, because if you don't know that you don't know,
Mm-hmm.
you have nothing to push you to identify that which you don't know until you accept the fact that you don't know something,
Right.
that
And
there's something that you don't know.
yeah, exactly. And there's always going to be something you don't know.
Always.
And
And
so positioning yourself to be able to learn that, number one, and number two, adapt. You talk about being able to adapt all the time. Like that is crucial to this process, because the people we are now in our 50s is not the people we were in our 30s. A lot of adaptation has had to take place over the last 25 years. Like that's, and one thing that I got so much out of that experience that was beneficial. But there's one thing that I want to share, because there may be one person who's listening now or watching the replay who this will be a freeing thing for them. One thing that was very eye opening for us is that we could negotiate. So, in this process, right, when we're flushing out why the need's important, how the need benefits the marital team, what are the specifics around how the need can be facilitated. There would be times where she would say she would, and we were writing all this, right? So we've got pages and pages of all this. So there would be times where she would write something down under the specifics around how she wanted me to meet a need. And what we were told was, okay, you don't necessarily have to accept it lock, stock, and barrel. I could look at that and say, let's say, for example, she said, okay, I need A, B, C, and D. These are the four things that I need you to do specifically to meet the need. I could look at that list and say, okay, I can definitely do A. I can definitely do B. I can definitely do C. But D, there may be some times where there will be inconsistencies because of these things. What contingencies can I put in place to ensure that when those moments happen where I can't do it, we can do something in its place? Like I was never under any impression that I could do that.
Hmm.
And so for me, that was big for me, because and it's interesting because we see often in our clients that our clients are so often so strong-willed as it relates to standing on their position that they don't leave room for negotiation, or don't believe that negotiation is even a thing that could take place.
That's interesting. That's
And
interesting.
for me, that was a wake-up call, because sometimes you'd be like, well, I and knowing how to articulate that, as opposed to just saying, oh, I ain't doing D because I know I can't do that. No, 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 hold on. Maybe you can, but you just can't do it consistently. So what contingencies are you going to put in place? Whole different thought process
That's
as it relates to that.
interesting. That's interesting that the word that you all use is negotiation.
Hmm.
Um, Even negotiation has to have an end result and has an outcome.
Yep.
Has to have an outcome, and it's something that I like to use when I talk about relationships and problem solving. And
Hmm.
it's not it's almost the same thing as you talking about negotiation, but I try to put the end result in front of the negotiation.
Okay.
So it's like basically it's not who's right, it's what's right.
Exactly.
Okay.
Exactly.
And if the team is bigger than any individual, it's greater than any individual, any situation. So as it relates to whatever the circumstances are, the reason why I can't meet that point or that number, okay, how can we do this so that the team wins? Because that maybe not be as important as you might have meant it to be, because um, the team is what's important.
Right.
And it's understanding that, because see, sometimes we have some things that we look for and desire that are not conducive to the relationship.
Hmm.
They're not conducive, and I'm sitting up here trying to meet something that really
Right.
it ain't. Where is it going to lead to?
It
Where
does.
is the outcome of me doing this or you doing that? Where are we going here?
It doesn't help the team, and that's why the second question in that series is, how does this benefit the marital team?
Mm-hmm.
Because that right there is where you're able to identify, yay, expose those things that are actually still selfish,
Mm-hmm.
that you think are emotional needs, but you really just trying to get over, because
Yeah.
they don't benefit the marital team, they benefit you.
Yeah. I mean,
So,
and to sit there and to negotiate that.
mhm. And
You,
that's why we don't even get to the negotiation piece until we can flush that out. How does
yeah.
this benefit the marital team? If we can't come up with a way that this benefits the marital team, we got to go back to the drawing board.
Yeah. And so that automatically changes what I call the mindset.
Hmm.
It's when your mindset is not selfish anymore and it's selfless, it changes the perspective
Yeah.
on all the circumstances, every situation that you're in. Now it's like, how can I serve you? And that's how you started this thing.
Hmm.
If we're into service, because that's what relationships are, it's what can I bring to the table,
Hmm.
not as much as what I can get from the other.
Right.
It's what do I have to offer?
Yeah.
And then what this illumination in many cases do is it shows your ineptness or what you fail to be able to bring to the table.
Hmm.
And
Yep.
then you got to do a self inspection. Am I look, am I ready for this?
Hmm.
Am I pulling the see, when it becomes me and me, it's about, am I meeting the needs of the other one?
Yeah.
Can I do what they saying? And if you can't do it, see, maybe you need to step back and say, okay, I ain't ready for this yet.
And here's the next thing, right? Even if you can't do it, right? The thing that we aren't often taught in relationships, you talked about the team, right? We understand the team concept when it comes to sports. We understand the team concept when it comes to other areas of our lives, but we don't apply those same concepts to our relationship. When you can't pull your weight, so to speak, now that's an opportunity actually to craft a play. If we're talking about team, that's an opportunity to craft a play that allows the strength of your teammate to fill in the gaps.
Yeah.
Because what we're not often taught is that fair is not synonymous with even. Those are not the same. Our goal is not to be even, because if our goal is to be even, we're going to always fall short.
Mm-mm.
The goal is to be fair, which means there may be some scenarios where if 100% is covering everything. There may be some scenarios where my fair and true and most gallant effort is 25%. And her fair and true and most gallant effort is 75.
It's interesting you use the
And we
word.
won.
Yeah, the interested your words. You said fair, and what came to mind was share. Okay, my share in this situation is 25, and her share is 75. So I'm not. It's not equal. It's just
Right.
it just adds up to what we need.
Right.
And so when I say, look, this is all I got. This is my share. And what you say when you say that, though, when you talk about team, man, people don't understand the value of going and participating in athletics with being a part of a team.
Yeah.
Because in many cases, and I'm not saying this that women aren't capable, but men, I think, understand the value of the weakest link. We understand that we're only as good as the weakest link. Now, here's my point. As the team, we need to know where everybody is and what their part is. So if that part falls short or falls down, somebody got to fill the gap.
Right.
Somebody got to fill the gap. And when I say the weakest link, I'm saying it in the sense that everybody got to be in it to win it with the same outcome. So that we're putting, because see, here's the point. If you're capable of 50% and you ain't giving but 25.
Now we have a problem.
See, now we got a problem. Because now we're going in the locker room and we got to discuss it. See, but in relationship, we've got to understand that it's only 100%. It's only, we can only do this thing if we both giving it all.
And here's a key to that, right? Here's a key to that. This is something else we don't often see taught in relationships. If we're using the sports analogy and context, right? You know, once you step on the field or on the court, you know what your contribution is. And the reason why you know what your contribution is because there was a playbook that was drafted previously prior to you coming out on that field and on that court that shows you where you're supposed to be and shows you what your position is. And you've already practiced it and talked through it and have done it. So at no point are you going out and you're supposed to be a quarterback and you wide receiver. And the problem in relationships is that we don't take the time, nor do we want to take the time to craft that playbook prior. We're winging it. And because we're winging it, one day I go out and try to be the quarterback and I fail. The next day I try to be on defense, I fail. The next, well, hold on. How about we take some time and flush this thing out and have some conversations and craft some strategy and create a playbook so we know where we plug in. So every time we hit that field, aka whatever the scenario is in life, we already know. And because we already know, we're more set up to win.
And this is what we talk about, preparation.
Yeah.
I mean, that's when you know what you're, I mean, there are points in our lives that are critical. And I think we've had this conversation before, because as relates to relationships, it's like, how do we show up? How do we, I mean, we find ourselves in situations and circumstances and we're not winning. But in many cases, we got to realize, how do we show up? And I think that's the point that you were trying to make, is that there were things that you didn't know.
Right.
It didn't mean that they weren't required. It didn't mean that it wasn't required. It just that you were participating in something that you didn't have all of the equipment, all of the things needed to participate in it the way it was needed to participate in it.
Yep. And that preparation, a significant part of that preparation is, and you talk about this all the time, you knowing yourself And that kind of goes back to what Alicia was saying, talking about attachment styles. We many of us don't know what our attachment style is. We just know that, okay, when this particular thing happens, I feel some kind of way, or I act this way, or I react that way. Why? Because you got a certain kind of attachment style that takes you there. Okay, once you identify that and you recognize it and you know it now, what adjustments need to be made? What therapy do you need? What, and the whole list of what's happened after that, right? That now on the backside of answering those questions sets you up for a level of success now that you would not have experienced if you were just winging it and you didn't know.
And it's amazing how relationships will bring those things out in you.
Mm-hmm.
Those I'm going to call them weaknesses, those things that you were unaware of.
Right.
Your relationships will bring them out, and it doesn't matter if they're professional professional or personal.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter, because there's going to be some type of conflict that you're going to draw on what you know about yourself,
Right.
and address that situation with.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that I think many of us are comfortable with, unfortunately, until we're confronted to the point where we say, okay, look, I'm tired. I can't do this anymore. I mean, that
You know what's interesting though, and I say this all the time. What's interesting to me is that all of this stuff we talk about as it relates to building and maintaining healthy relationships, we actually do in all the other areas of our life. If you think about it, right? In the corporate space, I conducted meetings, I facilitated meetings, I had to communicate, I had to make sure that my intentions were clear, whether it be written, whether it be oral, uh, electronic. I had to make sure that the team knew what what the goal was. We often had to collaborate. We often had to go back to the drawing board. We often had to sit down and have conversations about what the direction is and who's going to play what role and what. If there was any conflict, we had to make sure that it was resolved because there was an end goal in mind. I did it every day, but could not come home and do it. And it we see it all the time. And it's interesting because any client who's ever been with me, they'll tell you this. I often in the beginning, I ask them what they do for a living. And it's feel they often look at me like that's a very off the wall question for what I'm talking about trying to communicate with my spouse. You ask me what I'm doing for a living. You'll see, because I guarantee you 9.9 times out of 10, I can take something that they do in their career and point it back to something they should be doing in their marriage.
mm-hmm, I can agree. I mean,
Or not doing, vice versa.
mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And it's interesting because when that when they recognize that,
Mm-hmm.
um, it interesting because it can show things probably that they probably don't like doing in their jobs,
Mm-hmm. Yep.
or that they do like doing in their jobs, or and they don't do them at home. I mean,
Yep.
for whatever reason, they're just not doing them at home.
Yep. Stuff that they're
And
good at.
mm-hmm,
It also brings out the opposite too, right? So I had a client some years ago. The wife was a C-suite executive. The husband was a lower level individual contributor, right? So right there, you kind of have that dynamic that people deal with, where six plus figure earner,
mm-hmm,
regular, quote whatever regular means, guy, right?
mm-hmm,
But the way she approached her team is the way she had tried to approach her marriage. And often he would be like, listen, I don't work for you. Like, you're treating me like I work for you. Right. So there's pieces of that you can take that are both positive and that are detrimental
mm-hmm.
to illustrate how to craft better strategy, how to make different adjustments so that you can win as a team.
And you've got to understand the different, and like I said, it's personal and professional, but you've got
Mhm.
to understand what's the goal, the end result of what you're trying to do. What's your team like when you're at work? Your team's object, the end result of your work is different than the
Mhm.
objective of your team at home.
Mhm.
Okay, and if you don't recognize that, even though there are things that are similar that you could do, sometimes they won't behoove you to to do
Right.
them at home, even if that is something that you are doing successfully at work.
Mhm.
You
And I
know,
could flip this. I could flip. I was able to kind of flip it on them the same way, right? Because there would be times where they were not communicating at all, right? And there would be things that she would just assume that he should already know that for whatever her reasoning is for assuming that. And then when things don't happen the way that she assumed they would, she feels some kind of way. And so I'd ask, okay, listen, if you expected your team to do ABC, would you not tell them and assume that they're going to do it? How do they know that you want them to do ABC? She was like, well, I tell them in a meeting. Oh, really? But you expect him to know without you saying anything. Make that make sense for me.
well, see there's an interesting dynamic. There's an interesting dynamic there in that case, anyway, because you got this woman that is uh, uh, an executive, and then she comes home and she's expected to be a helpmeet.
Hmm.
Okay, that has to translate into not only how what she says, but how she says it.
Oh yeah, without a doubt, without a doubt.
And see, and there and again becomes another dynamic that is all in play there also,
Hmm.
that you've got to navigate also. So there's plenty of work to be done
Yeah.
in the space of relating to one another. But I think, as we have already stated, that the end goal has to be clear to both sides.
Yeah.
So this negotiation that you're talking about, if that's something that's able, if that's something that you can do, that's something that you can facilitate,
Hmm.
be clear on what the objective is, what the outcome of that is, and it has to be to benefit the team.
Yeah. I would challenge anybody who's listening now or watching the replay. I would challenge you, if you have never, if you have not done this, to go through an exercise where you are identifying your most important emotional needs and you are answering these questions. Why is the need important? How does the need benefit the marital team? How can your spouse facilitate meeting that need? And what atmosphere, how can you create the atmosphere? Because it's a team effort. It's not just how can they meet the need. How can you create an atmosphere that's conducive to that need being met consistently?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I promise you. And if you need to flush this out, this is not a shameless plug. This is a real plug. No, it is a shameless plug. Shameless means without shame. This is
Yeah.
a shameless plug.
Yeah.
If you need help flushing that out, because we take our clients through a very extensive process to do this. You need to have a conversation with me, because I promise you, they say coaches are not supposed to make guarantees. So I'm not going to use the word guarantee, but I promise you, if you go through that exercise with some intention, your relationship will change on the back end of that.
I mean, here's the thing: an aha moment in and of itself is self-awareness
Yeah.
that has created success in this process, because it will show value
Hmm.
in every area of your life.
Yeah.
So I say that to say, because when you say that there's no absolute, no guarantees, I think there is some degree of
There is.
understanding that there is awareness.
Hmm.
Self-awareness is an accomplishment in and of itself.
Yeah.
In and of itself.
It is. And there's you're going to get to an expected end when you're intentional about something. they just tell you, like when I was doing some of the certifications that I did, they would say, don't make any guarantees to your clients. And in my mind, I'm like, listen, as it relates to relationships, there are some cause and effect things that if you do this, you're going to get that. And if you choose not to do this, you're going to get something different.
Yep.
And you
Yep.
got to choose what you want.
Let me ask a
You know what I mean?
question. Do you do individual coaching?
Yeah, so we do one-on-one coaching. I do we work with couples and I work with men. So I have a couple clients that are just men, single men and married men.
Mm-hmm.
We also do group coaching.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I love both of them. I love the group coaching space because the group coaching space allows couples to see that they're not in this by themselves. And often in the group coaching space, the couples actually start coaching each other, and we just kind of sit back and like, yeah, I like it.
Mm-hmm.
The one-on-one space is really for individuals who really know that they need to kind of dig in a little deeper. They need to, the group coaching space is gonna be surface level and maybe one or two layers underneath.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really got to dig and you really got to go through some honesty and some forgiveness and some reconciliation and some restoration, y- you got to do the one-on-one space
Right.
so we can
Gotcha.
really do some digging.
Gotcha. Well, I guess to call that a good segue for you to say who you are and tell people exactly how they can reach you is prime time. It's the time to do that. Is right now.
Absolutely. I am everywhere on social media. That is the social media handle at Denali LLC. So if you're a social media person, come follow us, particularly on YouTube and TikTok. But we are other places as well: Facebook, Instagram, Pinterest, some of those other places. But particularly YouTube. YouTube, there are 400, almost 500 pieces of content on YouTube where, and I tell people this, people, I had a business coach who got really upset with me when I said this, but I keep saying it. Listen, you could literally go to our YouTube channel and you would never have to hire me as a coach. And I'm okay with that. There's that much value in the YouTube channel. If you just went there and was like, you know what, for the next 8 months, I'm just going to watch videos on his YouTube channel, you won't need me. I promise you, you won't.
At least
Um,
tell them to subscribe.
yeah, please subscribe. Please subscribe. That will help. That will help. But yeah, there's so much content there. There are coaching sessions there. We do a YouTube show every Thursday and every Saturday. That's there. There's a series called Short Tips for a Long Marriage that is like 240 videos in that series. There's stuff there. So if you're really serious about um, you know, building and maintaining the relationship of your dreams, social media is right there. If you want to connect with me via email, you can email me at the email that's on the screen, Oliver@denali.org. Denali.org is also the website. I'm a coach, an author, a speaker, do seminars, workshops, retreats, author of the book Overcoming the Man Laws for the man who wants to be his best despite what he was taught. And I don't know if you can tell, if you can hear it in my voice. Generally, when I'm talking relationship stuff, I get a little bit more animated, a little bit more. I love this. Like I eat, dream, sleep this. So I'm really, really passionate about seeing relationships thrive and seeing men win in every area of their lives. So if that's something that interests you in any way, shape, or form, connect with me and let's have a conversation.
That's great. Well, by all means, people reach out to Oliver. He's one of our connected resources that we have here. So reach out to him, and that's one of the reasons why he's a part of us. So, and if that is something that you need, by all means, reach out. Again, we apologize for our guests not being able to be here tonight, but I hope you were able to gain something that can help you navigate life a little bit more successfully. We will be back next week with another guest, hopefully. And we're going to be doing some changes that are going to be coming up in the next few weeks. So the new year is going to probably present something a little bit different. So be on the lookout. But by all means, if you have not joined our YouTube channel, please join our YouTube channel and support us by becoming a subscriber of our YouTube channel. Remember that we're here for you. So we really would like for you to help us and help you. Anything else you got, Oliver?
No, that's it. Thank you guys for being here. Those of you who are in the comments, we appreciate you. Those who are watching
Absolutely.
now or watching the replay, we appreciate you. And go and check out other episodes. Phenomenal guests, great conversations, incredible value.
Absolutely. That's on our YouTube channel at Clear Journey Inc. Alrighty. And as usual, we can't change life, but we can help you navigate it. Until next time, we'll see you then.
Later. And happy holidays, actually.
Oh, absolutely. It's
I keep
almost here.
I keep forgetting it's December, but
Yeah. I understand that's kind of easy for you.
yeah. Till next time, we'll see you guys.
Alrighty.